This is grape video number 3, grape buds. A bud is a compressed shoot surrounded by protective tissues. By that, I mean when a bud ends its dormancy, it expands and a shoot emerges as shown here. That shoot had already begun to develop in the previous growing season, but its development was kept compressed within the structure of the bud. All green parts of a vine begin with a bud. Buds do not spontaneously develop from just anywhere on a grapevine. They form in specific locations on the vine during the normal growth of the vine. We manage grapevines to have a particular arrangement and density of shoot growth. For example, here is a schematic drawing of a vine that is being managed with the Scott-Henry training system. In a later video, we'll talk about many kinds of training systems. Here is a Cabernet Franc vine managed with the Scott-Henry training system. Notice the orderly arrangement of shoot growth and clusters. Here is a Riesling vine that is also being managed with the Scott-Henry training system. Here is a schematic of the mid-wire cordon training system. Many people inappropriately call this the vertical shoot positioned or VSP system. Here is a Cabernet Franc grapevine being managed with that mid-wire cordon training system. The point of these examples is that good vine management results in an orderly structure to the vine. We don't want shoots to grow on parts of the vine, such as the trunk shown here and the shoots attached within the yellow oval, because they can crowd and shade out the shoots that we are using to directly produce the crop. Therefore, if we understand some details about grape buds, it can help us manage the desirable as well as the undesirable shoot growth on a vine. Here are some vines that are out of control with undesirable shoot growth. The fruit is buried under the leaves. There is no possibility of producing quality fruit from these vines. As we proceed with this presentation, we will avoid using many of the plant anatomy terms such as bracts, axils, axillary bud, etc. Several other publications do this very thoroughly. Our descriptions of plant anatomy will be limited to those that directly are useful to growers. Very importantly, there are just 2 sources of buds on a grapevine. One source of buds is along a cane, as we discussed in grape video number 2. They are sometimes called count buds because we are often concerned about how many of these buds we leave on the vine at the time of pruning. Recall also from grape video number 2 that each of the buds along a cane is actually 3 buds, with the largest of those being the primary bud. The dead primary bud in this photo was responsible for about 2/3 of the fruitfulness of the 3-bud complex shown here. Therefore, the potential of this 3-bud complex to produce a crop is now only about 1/3 of what it had been before the primary was killed. This is a count bud along a cane on the left. There has been a longitudinal cut through the count bud on the right. If we look more closely at the primary bud, we can actually see a compressed shoot. The dark lines within the yellow oval in this primary bud are the compressed nodes, and the light lines are the compressed internodes. I think that's amazing. I can see about 5 dark nodes and about 5 lighter internodes. When growth begins, these light and dark lines expand to become the base of the shoot, something like the shoot in this photo. As this shoot continues to grow, the tip of the shoot produces more nodes and more internodes. Did you know that the quality of shoot growth in one growing season influences the fruitfulness of the vine in the following year? That's because the clusters that make the grape crop actually begin their development in the previous growing season. These green areas on the side of the compressed shoot will become the grape clusters. Yes, grape clusters begin their development in the growing season before they produce a crop. We'll talk about how many of these buds to leave on a grapevine and where to leave them when we discuss pruning of grapevines in later videos. The second type of bud on a grapevine is called a base bud. They're tricky. As their name suggests, they develop at the base of green shoots. We already know from Grape Video 2 that green shoots ripen at the end of the growing season into woody brown canes. So each year, the vine gets new base buds at the base of each and every cane. Because there are several base buds at the base of each cane, that means that there are lots of base buds in lots of places on the vine. These base buds are quite small compared to the count buds on canes. They may be barely visible or not visible at all. The characteristics of base buds vary considerably from one grape variety to another. They can be very fruitful, so they can contribute very significantly to the production of a crop. Or they may be very unfruitful and contribute almost no crop to a vine. Here are some examples of the two extremes. This is a Sangiovese vineyard in the Tuscany region of Italy after harvest. In the background, on the hill, is the walled city of Montalcino. The base buds on these Sangiovese vines are so fruitful that they are used to produce the entire crop. If we look closer at one of these vines, the grower pruned off all the canes on these vines during the winter. The entire crop then developed on shoots from the base buds along the cordon. Here is a closer look to look at a cane that developed from a base bud along the cordon. Shoots that develop from base buds are called base shoots. At the other extreme, some varieties, such as the Native American varieties Concord, Catawba, and Niagara, have very little fruitfulness in their base buds. Nevertheless, even on these varieties, base buds occasionally develop some crop. Here are two scrawny little clusters on base shoots of this Concord vine. The base shoots producing these clusters develop from a base bud that grew out of the trunk. The winter hardiness of base buds is just the opposite of the overall hardiness of a vine. That is, a cold hardy variety like Concord tends to have base buds that are cold tender, while a variety like Riesling, which is much more cold tender than Concord, tends to have hardier base buds. Go figure. Base buds are tricky not only because they are not easily seen and vary in their fruitfulness and hardiness, but also because they may produce a shoot the year immediately after they form, or they may remain dormant for many years. One reason base buds may stay dormant for many years is plant hormones. Hormones produced in leaves higher on the vine flow down the vine, down the trunks, and may keep buds dormant for many, many years. A grower may be able to take advantage of this situation. For example, a major trunk of this multiple trunk vine was pruned away near the ground. That released base buds from dormancy where the trunk was removed because there was no longer a flow of plant hormones down that trunk to keep the base buds dormant. Canes that develop from the base buds near the ground are now a useful source of so-called trunk renewal canes to establish a new trunk. Sometimes the growth of base shoots from base buds is not so helpful. Here are two canes that develop from base buds at an old pruning cut on a young trunk. Canes like these on a young trunk are often not pruned flush. Rather, a short stub of cane remains like this. Base buds on this stub of cane may grow one or several shoots the following growing season, or perhaps several years later. Such unpredictable random growth of shoots from base buds on a trunk, on an arm, or somewhere along a cordon is often unwanted. It can result in excessive shoot density. The grower must then spend time and money to remove those unwanted shoots. Therefore, try to make flush pruning cuts whenever possible like this on parts of the vine where future growth of shoots is not wanted. This photo shows how messy things can get with unwanted growth of base shoots on a trunk. This base shoot grew from a base bud on a young trunk a couple of years ago. It was pruned to leave a short stub. That resulted in two other base shoots emerging the next year. They were also pruned to stubs, so that last growing season, a total of 4 base shoots grew and became these 4 canes. This can go on over years until there's a messy complex of numerous buds emerging every year as shown here. We'll come back to base buds and count buds when we discuss strategies for pruning grapevines. For now, we'll close this video by summarizing that there are just 2 kinds of buds on grapevines. Count buds on canes and base buds at the base of canes. Our new viticulture terms for this video are base bud and base shoot. Thus far, we have only talked about parts of the grapevine when it is dormant. In our next video, we'll talk about the green parts of the vine that develop during the growing season.